Microphone? Standing in front of. Whichever one you choose, I'm going to keep that one in there, and then I can. It has to be. Well, I've got a little clip of it, and it just advances, goes back, and even has a little laser to make designs. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Should I Go part of our Should I Stay and Should I Go part. You can't hear me? You can't hear? Microphone's on. That's weird. I'm going to switch it out. Can you hear me now? All right. Good morning and welcome to our second week, our Should I Go part of our Should I Stay and Should I Go part of our 2-week program where we try to give people as much information as they can stand for just a 4-hour time period. And I want to say a quick thank you to everyone who brought refreshments today. We have Magnolia Gardens, and we had Terabella, we had Pinehurst Healthcare and Rehab, Fox Hollow, and Pines Funeral Home. So I hope you enjoy. Last week we had a lot of bagels left over, so we learned our lesson, and that's why we don't have any bagels today. And the coffee that's out there on the landing, even though one of the handles is orange, it is not decaf. I promise you I won't make decaf this early in the morning. And so they're both, I just needed 2 pots. The restrooms are out the doors and to the left. If everyone has a cell phone, if you wouldn't mind silencing it, that would be lovely. We have wonderful table vendors here today. There's an agenda in front of you where you will see there's going to be built-in breaks just so that you can get up and walk around and talk to the lovely people who are here with great information. As you can see, we have a lot of vendors, but we have a limited amount of people who are talking. And that's because we don't want to have you sit for an 8-hour period of time, but that during that break time, you can go and visit the people and have conversations with them. So last week when I gave you the welcome, and then I was also explaining to you about some of the services that we have here at the Senior Enrichment Center, I forgot to tell you about our nutrition program, and we have 2 of them. So I'm just going to briefly speak on those. One is our congregate meal, and we have a congregate meal here at the Senior Center Monday through Friday, and we also have one out in Robbins on Highway 705. And what that is people can sign up, they can come in, and it's a hot lunch. And I don't know if you remember back in school when hot lunches came out, sometimes the hot lunch is really delicious and sometimes the hot lunch is good. But what it is, it's you're having food with people, you're socializing and having fun, and that's the most important part. On Mondays here at the Senior Center, we have Bible study. Tuesdays is chair exercise with one of our fitness coordinators or instructors. Wednesday and Thursday is bingo. So if a person brings $1.25, because now the Dollar Tree has gone up to $1.25, if a person brings $1.25, they will leave with an item, because everybody plays bingo until everybody in the room has been able to win. So it's fun. And then Friday is our free day where you can come in, you can walk the track, you can do whatever you want. Some people drive here on their own. Some people are brought here by family members. And some people take our transportation bus. And the transportation bus can get here anytime between 8 and 9. But the meal is early. Everybody eats between 10:30 and 11 because at 11:30 the bus comes to pick everybody back up. So it's early, and sometimes they can be dropped off and they'll go in the gym and work out, or they'll go downstairs and walk around the track, or they can go get a cup of coffee and watch TV, listen to some music, whatever they want to do. This building is theirs as well. And so the one out in Robbins, every day is an adventure because the woman who runs that one, Kathy Lewis, is amazing. And every day she'll just come up with all kinds of games and activities. She's amazing. But they get the same lunch as we do here. We partner through a grant with Mid-South Catering, and they provide the meal. Now, what they also do is most people in here have heard of Meals on Wheels, correct? Okay. Did you know that Meals on Wheels only covers half of Moore County? A lot of people are surprised by that. They only cover from Pinehurst and Southern Pines south. And our home delivered meal program covers Taylortown, Whispering Pines north. We have 9 meal routes. Right now, we are looking for someone to deliver in Seven Lakes area. We rely solely on volunteers that will go to a meal site, pick up the meals that are already prepackaged, and then take a list and then go and deliver to whoever is on that list. Because sometimes it's a different person. If the person is homebound and they can't get out, but they have a doctor's appointment and their family member is going to take them to the doctors, or they have transportation that's going to take them to the doctors, they're going to call us and say, I don't need a meal tomorrow because I won't be home to get it. Because we do not want hot meals that need to be a certain temperature delivered, and then a person eats them 4 hours, 5 hours later, and they're spoiled. So we definitely need a person to be home to accept those meals. So anyway, if anybody's ever interested in volunteering to, even if it's one day a month to volunteer to go deliver a meal, I know Jenna Ratliff, who works for Pinehurst Healthcare and Rehab. She's wonderful. She delivers on Fridays for us, which is great. So anyway, so with that, I think I wrapped up all of the other services last week. And if I missed anything, our table in the front will have all of the information. I want to keep us going, so I'm going to introduce our very first speaker, and her name is Kimberly Wassel, and she works at St. Joseph of the Pines, and she's going to be talking about the benefits of living at a CCRC and even explaining what a CCRC is. So, Kimberly. Turn this on, and all you have to do, it's 50 feet, so you just click that for advance, and then that to go back. And then this little red button here is the little laser beam.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everybody. And I just want to extend my gratitude to Lynn and her team for including us in this information session. It's always a joy for us to be here at the Senior Center. I see lots of familiar faces today and look forward to making some new friends today. As Lynn said, my name is Kimberly Wessel. I am one of the marketing folks over at St. Joseph of the Pines. Also here with me today is Nicole Friedberg Barron. Nicole is one of our sales counselors that specializes in our assisted living community. And there are a couple other ladies that work in our sales and marketing office. So we are small but mighty. We're a team of 4. And between the 4 of us, we have a total of 34 years of service to St. Joseph of the Pines. So we don't know all the answers, but we'll figure it out if you come up with something that we don't know the answer to. But again, I thank you for being here today. Information is power, and it's always good to do your homework so that you can start whittling away at things that you think are important to you and making good life decisions for yourself. And so, as Lynn mentioned, today we're going to be talking about CCRCs, Continuing Care Retirement Communities, otherwise known as life plan communities. You will hear both, and they're the same thing. And so, life plan communities were widely called CCRCs for many, many years. And just a few years ago, Leading Age, which is a organization that kind of oversees and governs and gives good guidelines for our types of communities, decided to change the names. And so just when we thought we had it down pat, they decided to add life plan community. And so that's where you will also widely hear communities like ours called. So let's just start at the very beginning, because some of you are deep into your exploration of what a life plan community is, and some of you are just starting out on your information journey. And so let's start with understanding what these communities are. And so a life plan community is a senior living community that offers a tiered lifestyle and healthcare options all on one campus, including independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing. These communities provide active lifestyle options to older adults through comprehensive services and amenities. So that's a mouthful. That's a lot. The next thing is that at a life plan community, residents often enter into independent living, then advance to assisted or living or skilled nursing if their health needs change in the future. And so what you will learn as you begin gathering information, making visits, and taking tours of community is that many life plan communities have lots of similarities, but they also have lots of differences. So today we're going to speak in general terms, but I'm also going to give you some good information that you should look for and be gathering as you're doing your tours and making your visits so that you can start doing your comparison of communities in the area. The biggest benefit of a life plan community is that, just as this says, that regardless of when you enter, whether you enter the community and you're living in the independent living component, or whether you move into the community already in the care communities of assisted living or skilled nursing, you do have the opportunities to move through those levels of care as you need them. Some folks live in independent living all their days, and some folks move directly through those as their needs change. And so these, again, are really good questions for you to ask as you're touring and get a good understanding of how these individual life plan communities work and how they serve the residents that live within their communities. So why would you consider a life plan community? That's what a lot of people ask us. And if you're here today, then you should consider a life plan community. Considering your options doesn't mean that you're making a decision today to move to a community. It just simply means that you're arming yourself and your loved ones with the information so that you can make really good proactive choices about what it is you want to happen with your life and when you want to have that happen. So people ask often, why would I consider a life plan community? What are the types of things that might be relevant to me and to my loved ones that would make me want to even investigate communities and learn more about them? And so these are some of the top things that we hear from folks that are exploring life plan communities. The first one is that as we age, our priorities change. The best home for the next stage of life should be one that provides more freedom, convenience, better care, and less worry. And so in a nutshell, what that means is that when you get tired of or are no longer able to pick up all the pine cones that fall, when we have these storms that come through, we get phone calls from folks saying, I can't keep up with the yard work anymore. Or I don't want to deal with having to do the home repairs or the upkeep or the house. Or what we hear most often in a more general statement is that it's just too much for me now. So the home that folks have lived in that served them well for however long it is that they've been there is just not the thing that makes sense for that person or that family at that time. And so looking into a life plan community that really takes care of all the hard stuff for them is a big reason that people begin their search into these communities. The next thing is that remaining at home can result in isolation, where life plan communities offer opportunities to build new relationships and social connections. I think that we all gained a wealth of knowledge during COVID over the last few years. Within just a matter of days, life really changed for everyone. And what used to be normal was anything but normal. In just a matter of days and weeks, lifestyles had to be modified. We didn't have access to people and services like we used to for those of us still living at home. For many of us, it was very lonely and it was very trying. And a lot of us have still had a hard time, even now that the world is getting back to a new normal. Folks have still had a hard time getting back out into the community and re-engaging. For folks that really enjoy time alone, that maybe they're a more introverted personality and they don't need to be surrounded by folks all the time to be happy. They enjoy that quiet time. That's great, but isolation and being at home alone all the time without social interaction is detrimental in many ways. It's detrimental physically and it's detrimental psychologically. There are many, many studies that talk about how important it is to have that human positive interaction with people that are the same kind of people like you, people that have similar interests and hobbies and that have a lifestyle like you would choose for yourself and that you would enjoy. And so I think we have learned in the last 3 to 4 years more than we could have ever known in the past how critically important that being with people part of a life plan community really and truly is to residents. The next part is that care at home can be costly and difficult. And so statistically speaking, we know that the majority of seniors choose their number one choice would be to age at home and to stay in their existing residence. And if they have needs that increase, to be able to bring help in to supplement that. And there are wonderful care providers who do exactly that. And in many, many cases, it is done very successfully and very safely. And so for folks who are electing to think maybe I'll stay at home and bring in care, there's some components that have to be considered. And cost is one of them. And so these are pieces of information that you will gather as you're doing your homework, is that weighing the pros and cons and the cost benefits of staying at home and being able to bring in care if you need it versus the cost of living in a life plan community that provides those levels of care as you need them. And then lastly, a proactive decision allows you to make important decisions for yourself instead of relying on a loved one to make the decision on your behalf. And so I think that most of us in the room could probably say that we have a friend or a family member that we love dearly, that we would consult with about life decisions or gain their advice and their thoughts on these big life decisions that we're trying to make. But anybody is going to have a hard time knowing exactly what it is that you specifically want. And so doing your homework in advance, deciding how you want your life to be, and having those plans and expressing them to folks, take all of that question out of it, because you are doing the most independent thing that you can do for yourself by deciding what it is that you want and then having that plan and making those decisions. Not only does it show a huge source of independence for you to do this, it also takes the weight and the burden and the responsibility off of your loved ones of them trying to figure out, is this really what my person wants? Is this what my husband wants? Is this what my wife wants? Is this what my mother or dad or my sister or brother or whomever it is that you might be working with and talking with about what your thoughts and plans are? We hear often from folks that we work with at St. Joseph of the Pines that they are making these decisions not just on their own behalf so that they are being fully independent and deciding what they want, but they are doing this as a gift to their family. And I think that that is a really wonderful and selfless gesture that people make. Lifestyle. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to move to that community and I'm just going to be around a bunch of old people. And how's that going to be? Well, it's going to be like this for the most part. So Every community is different. And as you go and you spend time and you get to see and experience for yourself what happens within the walls of those communities, I think, it's kind of like having a job. You don't really know what the job is like until you start doing it. And it's similar when you move into a community. But the more you go and visit and see what's going on, then you get a better feel for what you think your life might look like when you live there. So I just grabbed a few photos of some of our folks at St. Joseph of the Pines doing some of the things that they love. And so up at the top, they're doing an exercise class and seated exercise class. Over on the left, you can see that they're doing some water aerobics. In the middle, they're dining because, let's face it, food is generally the number one thing that we want to know about because it's the thing that we do every single day, multiple times a day. So food is a big deal. Bike riding, bridge. And so we know bridge is almost a religion in this area. And so we have lots of bridge players usually in the communities and talk to lots of folks. So lifestyle is a big deal. And so as you're going to visit these communities, you should have very frank conversations with the folks that you're talking to about the things that you enjoy and that you love to see if these communities offer that. And if they don't, if there's an opportunity for them to begin to offer those things. And more important than anything else is peace of mind. To know that you will be taken care of today and in the future as your needs change. And again, as I mentioned previously, that's one of the biggest benefits of a life plan community is to know that if you need care when that time comes, it's there for you. You have decided in advance that that is going to be where you're going to be, and those folks are going to be charged with your care. So what do you want to learn? Well, you could fill an encyclopedia, really, with all the things and all of the information. And so what I wanted to do is just try and break down as condensed as possible a couple of lists, a to-do list, things that you probably do want to do, and then things that you probably don't want to do. And so what to do as you begin touring. So you want to ask about pricing options because let's face it, a lot of our decisions about where we might want to live down the road or the care that we might want to receive are financially based. And so that is going to play a very large component in whether you're able to do certain things and what communities might be the best fit for you. So having a good conversation and gathering information and learning about the financial components of communities is critically important. Explore different types of residences in those communities. And so all life plan communities offer all kinds of residences ranging from small to large. And so it's important that you put your eyeballs on them and so that you can kind of take a look at how things look and what you think would work for you and make the most sense. So we encourage you to explore different types of residences. Quite often we have people come to see us that come and say, this is what I want. And then we go and look at that and they're like, that's not at all what I want. We're like, okay, that's no problem. We have other things. And so don't limit yourselves. Try out the dining. Did we talk about food yet? Yes. So it's important when you move to a life plan community, a lot of the meals you're going to be eating there on property in the restaurants and in the dining rooms. That's usually part of your services when you live there. And so you want to try the food. You want to have a dining experience, if possible, when you visit communities. And so ask for that because you want to see the menus, you want to be able to sample things, you want to see who comes to the dining room. So having a meal experience is a wonderful way to really start familiarizing yourself with communities. Ask about all of the amenities and services and what is included. So most of the communities are going to give you a whole bunch of information, that outline everything. And most communities also, when you take a tour, are going to show you a lot of the services and amenities. But sometimes it's more than what you can talk about in an hour or 2 hours when you're there visiting with folks. And so make sure that you're asking about everything that they have to offer, so that even if you don't talk about it at that particular tour or that particular visit, you can take it home and read over it and start formulating your questions. You want to get an activity calendar. As we talked about before, I showed you just a few snapshots of some of the events and activities that we have at St. Joseph of the Pines. Most communities have a person or team that is designated and responsible for providing really enriching activities and experiences for the residents that live there. And so you're going to want to see a copy or a sample of what one of those activity calendars look like, so that you can see if there are things that you would potentially engage yourselves in. Find out how to transition to higher levels of care. So if you go to a life plan community to visit and you're thinking that you're going to be moving in at the independent living level, it's great to understand from the very beginning that if your needs change, how would you get to those other care communities within the organization? How would you go to assisted living? How would you go to skilled nursing? Who are the people that would help you with that? How are those decisions made? And so that is a big conversation, but it's very, very important. And so I encourage you to really dig in and explore that conversation with the folks that you're meeting with as you're touring. And then talk to some residents, because let's face it, every single sales and marketing office at our communities, we all are going to tell you how wonderful we are, because we believe that. And we want you to come and live in our communities. And although we will be very forthright and transparent and try to provide you good and objective information, our goal is for you to really consider our communities. So the best thing that you can do is talk to the people that live there, because they are completely unfiltered and they will tell you the good, they'll tell you the bad, and they'll tell you everything in between. And so as you're touring, or as you're having a dining experience, or as you're coming out to participate in an activity or an event, talk to the residents. If you're not able to talk to the residents, oftentimes the folks that you're meeting with can provide you information and testimonials that residents have given in advance, that they'd say, hey, please do feel free to share this information of my story and my experience with folks, so that they can learn a little bit about what it's like to live here. So there are ways to talk to residents and get information, even if you haven't done it in that first initial meeting. Things not to do. So this is as important as the things to do. So the first thing that you don't want to do is that you don't want to rely on some preconceived notion about a community before you've ever gone to visit it. And so dispel what you've heard and what you've been told, and go for yourselves and gather that information and make your own decisions about how you think that community is, what it has to offer, and how it could or could not benefit you. Don't let someone else and their experience and their needs and what they were looking for in a community make your decision for you. You should be doing that for yourselves. And the next thing is, don't just visit one community. Don't just come to St. Joseph of the Pines. We want you to explore many communities, as many as you want to, because this is a lifelong decision. And we want folks to make sure that they feel like they have gathered as much information as they need to decide that the community that they are moving to unequivocally is the right one for them. So visit multiple communities. The next thing is, don't be overwhelmed by the process. It is easy when we are on information overload to shut down and say, this is too much. I just can't do it. I can't, it's more information than I can handle. And so based on how you receive information and the way that you like to learn and experience things, pace yourself. It doesn't have to be done in a day or a week or even a month, but make sure that you don't stop. Gather that information until you get to a point where you're ready to decide, should I stay or should I go? And then the next thing is, don't be afraid of what you're giving up. Every transition in life is a trade-off. You give up things and you gain things. We often hear from folks that are visiting with us, but I'm not going to have this. My home has this, or my home has that, or I think I'm going to miss this, or I think I'm going to miss that. And those are all valid concerns. But as you begin to weigh the benefits and the things that you gain when you do move into a life plan community, if you put them side by side, I think it would be a telling story that the advantages far outweigh the things that you would perceive that you would be sacrificing. And so the time is now. The other question that people ask us is when? When should I do this? Well, the fact that you're here today learning and that you came last week learning to gather information means that the time is now. This is not information to gather for another season of your life. The season of your life is now. And so you have already begun the journey to gathering all the information that you need and that your family members and your trusted friends and resources would need to make an excellent decision about your life. And so let's continue on that journey and know that the time is now. So do your homework. That's what we've been talking about. And then after you've done your homework and had these wonderful experiences at communities, then make the decision, the educated decision on, am I going to stay home or will I move to a community? Because once you've decided what you're going to do, that takes such a weight off of you. The hard work has then been done. The next thing is that once you've decided if you will stay home or move to a community, make your healthy living plan and share with your loved ones and your legal designee. And there are going to be experts that talk about that today. And so share your plans and your desires with that inner circle of folks that know what you're going to be doing and what you're going to be needing, and that will be there with you to help you with those next steps. And most importantly, enjoy this season of your life. You all have worked really hard. This is a wonderful time of aging and being able to participate and experience things. This county overall has so many wonderful options. Wonderful options as far as communities that you could potentially live in. Wonderful options as far as care providers that if you decide to stay home, that you could be assured would take really good care of you. Wonderful centers like here, the Senior Enrichment Center, that provides such a plethora of resources and opportunities for you. And so enjoy this time of your lives because you're perfectly positioned in an area that is set up to meet every need that you could potentially have. So where should I start? So it's great to know all the things to do, but then how do we get that started? And so start locally. As I said, there are good communities here in Moore County that you can start with. Start your tours, start your appointments, start gathering that information. St. Joseph of the Pines, our Belmead and Pine Knoll communities, you have an open invitation anytime. Call us. We work by appointment. Schedule a time to come and visit with us. We'd love to see you. Peanut, Quail Haven, and there are many others. This is just a first little glance list. But start locally. If it's your desire to stay locally in Moore County, these are great places to start with. If you want to look outside of the area, maybe you want to look other places in North Carolina, you have family or friends that live across the state that you would want to really consider. There's a reference guide that you can get from the North Carolina Department of Insurance. All life plan communities in North Carolina are governed by the North Carolina Department of Insurance. So their information is comprehensive, and it's a lot. But again, if you're looking at it in chunks, it will really help you narrow down the information that you're looking for and see if there are other communities outside of the area that you would want to consider. And then I want to leave you with this, and then I might have a moment to take a question or two, Lynn. I'm not sure how I am on time. But I just want you to remember you're never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. And so this is really important because many of the residents that I work with and that we get to see on a daily basis tell me often, I wish I had done this sooner. The only thing they regret about moving to our communities is that they didn't do it earlier than they did. So this again is a wonderful season of your life to set that goal or have a new dream about how wonderful these years can and should be for you. So I thank you so much for your kind attention. And I think I have a minute or two just to take a general question. If you have a question that's specific to you individually, you're welcome to come by our table and talk with Nicole and me. But if you have an overall question about Life Plan Communities, I'd be glad to take one now. Yes, sir.
If you're independent living, and what will move you to
Thank you. And so what was your name? Tom. So Tom's question is, if you live in independent living in a Life Plan community and they want to move you to a different level of care, assisted living or skilled nursing, who decides that? That's the question. So every community is different. And so that's one of the questions that you should specifically ask when you tour, is that if my needs increase, what happens? What are my options? And then how do I get to that option? At St. Joseph of the Pines, and I probably at every community, honestly, we really believe in resident choice. And so if a resident comes to us and says, I'm having these issues, what do I do? The first thing I ask them is, what would you like to do? This is your life. This is your home. What do you want to have happen? And if we can make that happen, that's what we do. If that desire can't be handled safely and successfully, then we talk about the plethora of other options that are out there. But this is a big part of the conversation that you all should have individually at your communities that you're visiting. So, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And your name? Mike. And so Mike's question is, do most communities take Medicare or Medicaid, and what happens if you run out of money? Again, that is different for every community based on how their financial structures are set up. And so that's one of the first questions that when you do go and visit, you're going to want to ask about pricing options. And so as you visit multiple communities and then you come home and bring in all that information, you are going to want to do a cost comparison and figure out how what you have, whether you have Medicare or Medicaid or a long-term care insurance policy or pensions or benefits, how that would apply to those communities. In addition to that, the marketing team and the counselors at those individual communities should be able to speak to you specifically about your financial situation and how that works within the parameters of what those communities offer. And one more maybe. Does anybody else have a question? If you would like a copy of this presentation, just as a kind of general guideline, please do feel free to drop by our table. You can provide me your email address, and I'll be glad to email it to you. And again, I thank you for your kind attention, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Kimberly. You do such a fabulous job explaining everything. Okay, I am going to bring up our next guest. And our next guest speaker is Robin Hutchings, and she works with Fox Hollow Senior Living, and she's going to speak about assisted living and secured memory care and what those two options are and what they look like.
Good morning, everybody. Robin Hutchings with Fox Hollow Senior Living, and we've just gotten over Easter, but I've got a joke. Okay. Why did the Easter eggs hide? Because they're a little chicken. So I am glad that you've all come today. I don't have a beautiful presentation, but I do have a lot to say about assisted living and memory care. I'm very passionate about these things, and I am here to help answer any questions that you have today. So I want to start by giving you a general overview of what these are, why they are important, how. That's okay. So things that you might need to know if you are considering these options, not necessarily for yourself, but for a loved one or for a neighbor, because we all have that person that needs that little more help in our lives that we don't really know what to do with, right? So assisted living is just that. It is where you move if you have a need, okay? So choosing an assisted living community should be done just like you chose where you live now. When you chose the neighborhood that you live in now, you didn't just go and say, well, this house is all right, I think I'll live. You looked around, you checked out the churches, you checked out the neighbors, you checked out what was inside. Looking for an assisted living community should be done the same way. You should touch it, you should feel it, you should understand it. Assisted living, the reason people move to assisted living, my top 5 reasons that I hear every day. I'm tired of taking care of this big old house, just like Kimberly said. You just don't want to do it anymore. Assisted living is going to provide you with a beautiful apartment, you to be able to live in carefree. No more housekeeping, no more doing laundry, no more cooking. You are able to live there with all of those services provided. Second reason a lot of the reasons people move to assisted living is they can't drive any longer. For whatever reason, health condition, memory issues, they're not driving. So they're kind of locked into their homes. They lose that socialization. When you move to assisted living, we have a wide variety I'm going to talk about in a minute. Third reason, managing medications. We all go to the doctor and the doctor wants to give you a pill for everything, right? Even during COVID, it was, oh, we'll take that vitamin C and that zinc. Don't forget the zinc because that'll stop the COVID, right? So all these pills that you're taking sometimes become overwhelming. In assisted living, we're going to help you manage those medications. Maybe even talk with you about maybe if we took a multivitamin instead of 7 individual vitamins, it would be the same thing, right? Fourth reason that people move in are food insecurities. How many of you live alone? Okay, if you live by yourself, okay, it's really a pain in the rear end to cook for one person, isn't it? You know, we just don't really want to do that every day. So sometimes we decide, oh, I'll just eat a bowl of cereal tonight, it's easy. Or I'll warm up that frozen dinner because it's easy. But we're not really getting the nutritional things that we need from that bowl of cereal or drinking that Ensure. Even though Ensures are great, they really shouldn't be meal replacements for dinner every night. Moving to assisted living, you will have a wonderful place to eat. The fifth reason that people move in, and probably the most important one, is safety and security. You're just not safe in your home anymore for whatever reason. Whether it be you're afraid you're going to fall down, or you have fallen down, or you don't have anybody to check on you regularly because your kids have grown up and moved away, right? Or you retired here and they live 3 states over. Your spouse has passed away and you're lonely. All of these are reasons to choose assisted living. Assisted living is not prison. I want to say that to start with. This is not jail. This is a new neighborhood for you to explore. Just like a life plan community, we just have a few more services that we offer. Okay, so if you move into assisted living, you would choose your apartment size. At Fox Hollow, we have 4 different sizes. They're not large, but they're large enough. We don't want you to live in your apartment. We want you to be out in the community in our Lifestyle 360 program, which is our activity program. We want you to be playing bridge or going over and having a pedicure or going out to eat lunch. Or last week we went out to eat at the IHOP and it was really good. I went with them. So, we want you to do the things that you enjoy doing. Assisted living takes trips other places. You can also have your car. You do not have to give up your car if you are still driving. You can still come to the Senior Enrichment Center. We bring the Senior Enrichment Center to the residents that live with us. We have their exercise program comes piped in right over the internet. So you can go and have exercise classes in your home, just like if you were to come here. Assisted living provides you with services. Not only housekeeping services and laundry services, not only 3 meals a day and 3 snacks a day, not only socialization, it also provides you with care. So if you have a home where you have a bathtub that's hard to get in and out of, so you just decide you're going to bird bath every day, or maybe shower 1 day a week now because it's just too hard to get in and out of that tub. Assisted living, most have walk-in showers where you can just walk in and there's no safety issue there. They also have people that can help provide care. I just had a birthday yesterday. I'll tell y'all the truth. Thank you. It was a hard one. I'm in the 9s, so I'm getting ready to change decades next year. I'm worried about it, but that's okay. But one of the things that I notice as I age is sometimes it's hard to get between my toes. It's hard to reach all the way down there. And when I do, am I going to slip? Am I going to fall? In assisted living, we can provide you as much or as little care as you need. The way we determine how much care you need is based on an assessment. The assessment is done for you. And it's not, okay, how many jumping jacks can you do? Can you do a push-up? Can you tell me what you can do and what you can't do? It's not like that. It's a general conversation. Tell me about your typical day. Tell me what you have trouble doing. Tell me how we can help you live a better life. Because that's what assisted living is. It is that comfort that somebody is going to be there to help you live your best life and to keep you as independent as you can be for as long as you can be independent. It is not about coming in and letting us do everything for you. We want you to be able to take care of your person. But if you can't, if you need that extra help, we want to do that as well. Sometimes our diseases that our doctors tell us we have dictate how our days go. For example, if you have to wear those awful TED hose for whatever reason, I'm sure if you've ever been in the hospital, had any surgery, and they put those compression socks on you and how hard they are to pull up. Well, sometimes in assisted living, you might need to wear those. It might be very difficult for you to do that at home, but we have somebody that's going to help you get those on every day so that you can have the best help you can have. Whereas if you were at home alone, you might just say, forget about it. I'm not going to do that today, right? That's what assisted living is. Assisted living is there to help you with your individual needs. That's called a care plan. We would develop your care plan. And then the third thing that we really do and we really concentrate on is medication management. We want to make sure that if you are taking medicines, that you take them regularly and correctly so that they're giving you the best benefit that you can have. If you are a diabetic, we want to make sure that we're checking your blood sugar so that your insulin, if you need insulin or if you don't, or if you need a glass of orange juice or a cookie to get you where you need to be, we want you to live your best life. The way we do that is by monitoring it and keeping up with it so that you don't have to think about that. That's what we do in assisted living. Now I'm going to go and step behind a secure door. How many of you know someone or have known someone that has some form of dementia. Dementia is a really tough disease because most of the time their bodies are still good, but their mind is just not what it used to be. So you would need to live somewhere where people could take care of you, all of your needs, not just your physical needs, but pretty much all of your needs, as well as helping you have the best life you can have, even though you have dementia. Just because you can't remember that today is April the 11th, 2023, that doesn't mean that you can't remember that it's a beautiful day outside and it's springtime, because you can. You recognize things, but living in a secure neighborhood gives you the opportunity to live your best life, but still get the care you need that is safe and secure. Anytime you move to congregate living, and assisted living or memory care is congregate living. Anytime you think about that, most people think about when their grandma used to live in the nursing home, and we would go on Sunday afternoons and they all sat there in their wheelchairs and they drooled, right? That's the image that comes to your mind. That's that preconceived notion that we want you to take away. Because as time has passed, we have evolved and we have gotten a lot more active. We have gotten a lot more like a community that you would live in, but we're going to offer you services. We don't want you to feel like you have stepped into the last month of your life. That's not what it's about. We want you to come and meet new friends. We want you to come and be a part of this community. There are several of us, I call us red apples. Tarabella, and I think they're here today, Brookdale, Fox Hollow, Magnolia Gardens. Who am I missing that's here today? That's assisted living. But you can add Terra Plantation, Seven Lakes Assisted Living. There's a couple in Montgomery County. We all offer these services. But what you find in each individual community is just like you found in the neighborhood that you selected, a different culture. What is right for you might not be right for your neighbor sitting right beside you. So you should visit them all. You should see what they all have to offer. Each one has a different pricing structure. They're not all the same. Fox Hollow charges 3 different ways: room rent, level of care, medication management. Another community might charge you room rent and then a la carte. Well, I need a shower 1 day a week. Okay, we'll add $100 for that. Or I don't want but 1 meal. Okay, maybe we can subtract for that. Each community is different. So that's why you should do your homework. That's why you should sit down and make your comparisons. That's why you should know before you go, okay? Don't let there be any question that you haven't asked. Do your homework now. Decide where you like now. So we'll talk about food because that was the lady before. And that's a good topic because don't we all like to eat? And we all like to eat good food, right? At Fox Hollow, food is included. So you're going to get 3 full meals a day and then a snack in between every one of them. So probably more food than you've eaten in a while. On top of that, if we have an activity, Cinco de Mayo's coming up and we're planning that. So we're already talking about the sauce and the chips that we're going to have on that day. So we think food is important. We think food is important to you. We don't only want you to eat food, but we want you to enjoy the food. We want you to have that camaraderie. Don't we all eat better when we eat with somebody? You know, it increases our appetite. So it's that socialization piece. We believe that we should touch on the 5 dimensions of wellness every day. Physical, with an exercise every morning. Emotional, with a devotion, spiritual with a devotion or a Bible study or a church service, intellectual, let's work our noodles because we all know if we keep them going, then they work better, right? But most of all, social. We want you to be social. We want you to make new friends. We want you to continue to have your bridge groups, or we want you to continue knitting with your knitting folks. We want you to play bingo. But I like to tell people, we're not just bingo and Bible study anymore. We have a lot of things in between. Back to the memory care for one more moment. If you have to make the decision to move someone you love to a memory care neighborhood because their care has gotten to where it is just too much for you to handle at home. They're either wandering, trying to get out of the house, they're incontinent, and it's very difficult to change someone that's incontinent. They don't remember you and they've become aggressive. They might still be just as sweet as they can be, but they don't remember how to get or go anywhere on their own, and you can't leave them alone at all. Or they become a fall risk. Memory care neighborhoods are good choices when it becomes more than you can take care of. This is going to sound like a scare tactic, but I do want you to think about this. If you're living with a spouse with memory issues and something were to happen to you and you're the main caregiver, let's say you fall down and bump your head and you can't call 911, could that person with memory issues do it? You always have to think worst case scenarios whenever the person that you are taking care of cannot care for themselves anymore. That's when memory care neighborhoods are a good choice. So I've talked a lot. I've said a lot. I've repeated a lot of what was said before me. So do y'all have questions about assisted living or about memory care? Yes, ma'am. Absolutely, we allow hospice to come in. Yes, I think most assisted living communities would do that. They have the care. Now, in assisted living, so the difference between a life care plan is that, what's it called? A life plan community is they have independent living where you would have a home health come in. Assisted living, we have the help right there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for you. Assisted living there would be the same. And then skilled nursing. So skilled nursing is, they're going to speak about it next, but they have 24-hour nursing. In assisted living, we have a nurse that's generally called a director of resident care, something like that, but they're your nurse that oversees med techs and CNAs. Medication technologists give you your medicine, and then CNAs give you care. So your question was, can hospice come in? Absolutely, hospice can come in. That's an extra level of care that your loved one can use. Palliative care and hospice care. At Fox Hollow, we have all hospices are welcome in our community, and we have some residents that use First Health, some residents that use a Liberty, and some residents that use a Medicis. Any hospice is welcome. Hospice is an additional service that you are entitled to and should use if your loved one needs it. And this apartment is just like your home. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So her concern is that there's not enough help in congregate living or in skilled nursing. And just like in your fast food or in your restaurants that you go to, there's help wanted signs everywhere. I'm not sure where all the people went during the pandemic. I'm not, but you're right. That is a concern. That is a question that you should ask as you're touring. I can't speak to all communities. I can tell you what I know about my community. My community has a lot of longevity. My executive director has been in her role for the past 20 years. We have probably 83, I think, team members right now that go all disciplines, all staffs, okay, all shifts, first, second, and third shift. We staff according to the number of residents that we have. State regulates how many they are, how many people you need. We always staff over the state regulations. That's our goal, is to have enough team members in the community to take care of everybody. But this is Easter week. We have a lot of mamas, so we have to get creative sometimes with our scheduling. For example, my executive director, my nurse that normally would not work on the floor, will work on the floor if that's what's needed, so that those call bells can be answered. Our call bell system, and I can only speak to mine, rings through a pager system. Pagers that each caregiver wears on their belt so they can look down and see what room is ringing. They cannot turn that pager off till they physically go into that room and press a button. So that pager system goes through the computer. So if your friend told you that, or let's just say it was your mother because you've got power of attorney, okay? Your mother says, well, they did not come for an hour and 10 minutes. I can tell you that that probably did not happen at Fox Hollow. I can't speak to other places, but I can pull it up on the computer and I can say, she rang at 9:35 and it was answered at 9:42 because that computer keeps up with it. It cannot be answered unless they go in to press that button. So if they go in, let's hope they would give the care that they need. So I can't speak to other communities. I do know that there is a shortage of staffing all over. I hear that all the time. We are always recruiting, always looking for good staff. It just is the way of the world now. In assisted living, yes. In assisted living, we transport to and from doctor's appointments, eye doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in our community, and then Monday and Fridays we do something fun. We also have doctors that come in to us. Right now we're using a company called Life Source. We have used doctors making house calls. We don't have a medical director that comes to our community. You would keep your own primary care physician. We would transport you back and forth. The other thing I'll speak to that is we have a podiatrist that comes in to do toenails quarterly. We also contract with a company called Shea Partners for psychological evaluations to help know, do they need, we can tell maybe they're slipping a little bit. They might have the beginnings of some form of dementia. So we partner with them. They come into us. Hospice comes into us. Palliative care comes into us. So yes, all of those extra layers just give your loved one or yourself that better care. I have time for one more. I'm going to come back in a little while. I'm going to talk about cost. That's what you all want to hear. So
Thank you, Robin. Thank you very much. And I just want to add to that, in all the levels of care, like last week when we had the should I stay portion, and most people want to stay in their home. I know my grandma was lucky. She was able to stay in her home until she was 89, and she wound up passing away in her home. She was able to get around because it was a very small house, and she had a lot of family and people that helped her. There are options for people to do that. But there's also, neighborhoods are different. Back in my grandma's day, a lot of neighbors would come out and they'd sit on their porch and talk to everybody else. In our communities out here, we're blessed to live in Moore County, and we sometimes can live in a neighborhood that can do that. But the social aspect is one of the most important pieces of being healthy. And so when you stay in your own home, sometimes you want to be independent, so I'm going to live in my own home, but then you have nobody to talk to. And so a lot of times if you live alone, that is the hardest part, because now you need to get things done like Robin was talking about, as just the meal part alone. But it's so nice when you live in an independent community. You can go in and out and you're living independently just like you would at home, but in a different place, because God forbid something happens, someone's here. If you're in assisted living, once again, you're moving in and out. A lot of times my fear is, and I've seen this with a lot of neighbors, is you want to live independent in your home and you think, well, maybe I'll go to one of these places someday. And then 90 creeps up and 91 creeps up and 92, you're a little slower and you're trying to still walk in the street. And then all of a sudden, instead of your choice, life happens and you trip over something and you fall and you break your hip. Now you don't have a choice anymore. And so what I always tell people is to think about it. I speak about this because my mom lived independently in an apartment and she started to get tired and we started talking about assisted living. She didn't want to do it. And then one day she fell and broke her hip. And then she wound up having to go straight from living independently in her apartment to now in a nursing home in a bed, because she just had a walker in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk anymore. So that's the thing, is everybody in their mind, they have a plan A, but they only have a plan A. And it's really good to have a plan B and a plan C, because at any time an accident can happen to you. Or, as we were speaking about before, if you are the person with the really healthy brain taking care of your loved one that doesn't have such a healthy brain anymore, that is one thing to think about. What happens if you need rotator cuff surgery or cataract surgery? Who is going to take care of that person? And learning about caregivers as much as we do here, 70% of caregivers wind up leaving this earth before the loved one that they are caring for. The reason is because they're spending all of their time and energy on that loved one that needs the care. And so it is a hard decision when you are having somebody at home and you want them to stay at home, because for better, for worse, you took those vows so many years ago and you don't want to put them in an institution, is what most people think of. They're not institutions anymore. They all try to have a loving home atmosphere, and they want you as healthy and happy as possible. And when a person needs to be moved into a secured memory care, it doesn't mean that you don't love them anymore and you're throwing them away. It means that you are putting them in the hands of professionals that do this for a living, that have been educated in this, that can actually help them move in and out, get them dressed, so that your back doesn't go out when you're trying to get them dressed. And a lot of times too, the people who have memory issues sometimes flourish in these places because they feel like they don't have to always be on, because they recognize that the other people that they are surrounded with have the same kind of issue too. And it might put them at ease that they don't have to try so hard. So I know these are all really hard topics, and there's a lot going on, but at least you've got information and food for the brain so that you guys can think of a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and just start thinking of those possibilities. If nothing like that happens and you live a happy, healthy life together, and one day you just go to sleep and then you are in heaven, that is a wonderful, wonderful plan. But it's a plan that we can't have. It's an idea and a hope that we all have. So I know I went out on a tangent, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to say this is a lot of information, and I understand all of the different choices and options, but I just want you to realize all of these options for these people that are coming here to speak, they're here to help you. And things have changed since my grandma was young, and we used to call the home. They're all different. And now there's all these levels in between, which is really fabulous. So now I'm going to introduce the administrator to the Greens at Pinehurst, and his name is Momin Afreed, and he's going to talk to you about skilled nursing and what a skilled nursing home looks like. Last week we talked a little bit about the rehab. So skilled nursing is, you can go there to rehab and then go home, or you can actually live there if you need to by living in a skilled nursing home. So come on up, Momin. I'm going to give you this microphone since my hands get sweaty when I talk. There you go.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Did it for me. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, it's been a while since I've done a speech or anything, but I'm very thrilled to have been invited to come talk to you guys. I really appreciate it. So, like I said, my name is Momin. I'm the current administrator at the Greens at Pinehurst. It's a 120-bed skilled nursing and rehab facility, aka nursing home. You know, like I said, it's an honor to be here and talk to you guys. I know there's a lot of options out there, you know, and you have so many options: assisted livings, you have nursing homes, home health. I mean, there's so much, and it can be really confusing to so many people, you know. And so a little background about myself, real quick. You know, my whole life I've spent my life in healthcare from an early age. I knew that taking care of the aging population was something that I was really, really passionate about. Was my calling. So after I went to med school, I had oversight over 5 Florida nursing homes. And during that time, I got a lot of very valuable exposure to the industry. But I thought I could do it better. You know, I thought that people were more than just a number. Everyone had a story, and everyone deserves the best, especially when they're at a point in their life where they need help. And I was really inspired to enter into long-term care. I spoke with a lot of administrators. I saw a lot of the struggles that nursing homes faced, and I knew my strengths. So I seized the opportunity to go into long-term care for that reason. And it's a way for me, I felt, to be able to make a difference to people on more of a macro level. So anyways, right now I've been an administrator since 2018. And I've gone through a lot of different buildings. I've been through across different states as well. I've gone through 3 different states. I've worked at nursing homes that actually had assisted living components. I had one that had a long-term acute care component as well. Some small buildings, some big buildings. So hopefully today I can try to answer some of your questions and give you a little bit more insight into kind of what goes on behind the scenes in nursing homes. Especially if you or a loved one might be considering a skilled nursing facility. So a little bit of a background on nursing homes. I guess back in the day, so to speak, it used to be kind of like the Wild West. You know, like I've seen some nursing homes that were actually like a house that was converted to take care of individuals. But a lot of that changed in 1987. There was a law that was passed called OBRA, and that really paved the way for state and federal regulations to provide a lot of oversight for nursing homes in particular. That also kind of capped the number of new beds that were allowed in the entire country. It also governs things such as the layout of the facility, how big a room should be, how big a hallway has to be, fire, life safety code. All of those things are governed by the state as well as federal regulations that we have to follow. So with that, I mean, there's definitely some challenges that can come across. One being, changes of rules. So every company that I've worked for in the past, they've always had, a corporation that really follows these very strongly, and they always inform us of anything new that happens. So with nursing homes, you have an annual survey. Where the state will come in and do an unannounced inspection of the facilities. In addition to that, there can be complaint surveys. So you as a resident, or if your loved one is a resident, they have so many rights. And one person that they can really reach out to is the state ombudsman. We try to deal with everything in-house. We have our entire staff is there to try to take care of everyone as best as we can. But of course, there's outside assistance that's provided. The ombudsman is one of the main sources I always refer people to if they feel like there's a pressing issue. And we deal with them quite a lot. So with that, there's also staffing challenges. I know we kind of talked a little bit about staffing challenges. I think especially after COVID. I mean, we're still in that era, but the biggest thing that happened with COVID and the lasting implications that I've found has been staffing. It's led a lot of agency utilization. An agency essentially is an outside entity that hires staff, and we have to staff at certain staffing ratios at the facility. Based on acuity and number of people on a hallway. So utilizing agency, that's something that we do. However, with agency usage, we try to have our own staff. So we're constantly recruiting, but whenever we have agency, there's always, there can be lack in care and lack in delivery of what's needed. So with agency, that's something that we utilize to help with staffing concerns. But what I've also found as a challenge is with hospitals. In this day and age, we're finding a lot of higher acuity of care that's needed. So at the hospitals, I found that we're seeing a lot more psychiatric concerns. People are living longer at home. People are, they might not have a loved one to take care of them. And, a lot of times we found people in really horrible situations that need assistance. There's people that, just straight can't take care of themselves. And because of that, there's like, DSS gets involved, and we need to find placement for this person. So the hospitals, a lot of times they'll get backed up. Emergency rooms, sometimes there might not be a bed available in an ER. So they're really trying to find placement for individuals. So nursing homes kind of fill this gap to try to augment that. So the modern nursing home, essentially, it's broken down. You have a short-term rehabilitation side. In the short-term rehabilitation side, we have individuals that might come in for like a short-term stay. Say they had a break, they broke their leg, or they had something of that nature. They might have had a stroke, but their ultimate plan is to get better and go home. So that area of the nursing home, we have a therapy department that works with the residents, and they go through speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, all of those sorts of things. In addition to that, we also have a long-term care component. So that's more traditional, what you might find when you think of a nursing home where people would reside there. And with that, though, we also have, you have to consider in the nursing home, you have private rooms where you have your room to yourself, but also there's semi-private rooms where you have, it's a shared room essentially. We also cater to hospices, so many hospice companies out there, and we work with just about all different hospice companies to have in the facility. We have a director of nursing, so nursing homes are supposed to have a director of nursing, have an administrator, there's a social services director, business office, there's something called an MDS coordinator, which deals with the care plans. We also have, of course, we have activities, dietary, and transportation as well. Most of the transportation that's provided is to go to doctor's appointments and things of that sort. However, nursing homes as a whole, they try to have activities of daily living to make it more of a home-like environment, an enjoyable place. So, of course, we would use our transportation to take people to these different activities outside of the facility to try to, re-engage them and have a higher quality of life. Especially after COVID, what happened was a lot of people really shut down. There was some insane rules that came about where, you might have seen photos of people looking at each other through a window, talking to their loved one through glass, which is very sad. A couple of years back, that really broke my heart. But we're trying to, slowly migrate out of that realm. So, following the rules from the government now, most nursing homes do allow visitation. In fact, they should all allow visitation, and going out and re-encouraging people to get back out into the community and do things to really, foster a love for what they enjoy in their life prior to coming into the facility. Now, the next thing I kind of want to touch on would be the process for admissions. Being in the hospital is definitely a very, very scary place. It can be really confusing. Going into the hospital, you can't stay there forever. You have to kind of make a decision, whether that be to go home, go to an assisted living facility, or, going to a nursing home. So many different other avenues as well. But in particular about the nursing home, I'll definitely touch on that, is what happens. So when you're at the hospital, you'll have a discharge planner, or a social worker. And those individuals are tasked with finding placement, right? So they're going to be presenting you, based on what the discharge plan is. Hey, you're going to need to go to, this is an option, going to a nursing home. So from there, what are some things that you should do? So first and foremost, some things to consider would be what sort of payer source you have. Insurance is a huge factor. We're definitely a mission-driven industry as a whole, but with our healthcare system across the whole country, it's really like a consumer-based type situation. So of course, we have insurance. Every month we're paying taxes, and it's going into Medicare. But I've had to deal with individuals and give them a really sad truth about what happens is when you have Medicare, for example, it only covers 100 days. After the 100 days, you really can go. You either have a secondary payer source, which is Medicaid, but it's the Medicaid that's needed is very strict. There's very low monetary levels that you can have to be able to qualify for Medicaid. There's also VA. VA is an option. The facility that I have right now, it's a VA contracted facility. So when we deal with our VA, a lot of times they'll give us, we have a contract with them, so we get authorizations and things of that nature to deal with that. Of course, there's private pay as well. But something to also consider would be managed Medicare, which is something that I always have trouble with. Things like Aetna, maybe Blue Cross Blue Shield, all of those are called managed programs, right? So, you get a lot of perks right now. You might get free glasses, you might get a couple knickknacks, things of that nature. But when you get into having to go to a facility, one of the issues, I shouldn't say issues, but one of the things that happens is when someone gets admitted, the first thing we have to do in the nursing home is to figure out what the discharge plan is. So we have to see, are they going to be long-term care or are they going to be going home, right? So, and the ideal situation is that plan doesn't change, but it can change. So with that, we have our social worker and we have a business office manager, and that's their essential role, is to make sure that people have everything that they need. So if they're going to be long-term care, we don't want to have people having to pay absurd bills, right? So we try to get them situated with a secondary payer source. And then a lot of times we have to deal with power of attorneys, deal with just Medicaid overall, just getting them qualified to be able to get Medicaid. And there's a 3-month look back usually for Medicaid. So if someone gets approved for Medicaid or if they lose their Medicare coverage, their benefits are exhausted. They pass all 100 days. Then after that, and they might need more care. So what happens, right? So in that situation, we try to get them on Medicaid. Now with the managed Medicare, like I was mentioning earlier, there's a lot of perks that you get right now. At the time when you come into the facility, what happens is our care plan team creates an entire care plan. You have to go to therapy. You have to do all of those things. But every single week, we have to report to the insurance company the progress. So they look at the progress notes. And the insurance companies have their own in-house team of nurses and physicians and things like that look at those and review those. And essentially at that point, they sort of take over and they'll dictate when they believe that, someone might be ready to go home. And, sometimes it's well and dandy, but a lot of times that's not the case. There's individuals that what they do is they give you a notice of Medicare non-coverage. It's called a NOMNOC. So it's 2 days. They give you 2 days to say, hey, like it's time to go home, and or you can pay privately or whatever. So they give the nursing home that that responsibility to relay that to the end user, which is our resident, and let them know that this is a decision that the insurance company has filed here. So what would you like to do? A lot of times we can do an appeal for a week. So they'll usually extend it. But it's really, it can be a difficult process if you don't have Medicaid in place already, So, at the facility level, it's something that I really hate doing. I mean, there's been situations in my career that we've had an elderly spouse taking care of her husband, had, I think he had Parkinson's, severe situation. And, he came to the facility, didn't have Medicaid, and, he had a managed plan, and it was time to give him a notice to go home. And, suddenly, unfortunately, the spouse is like, I can't take him home. I don't know what to do. I'm elderly. I don't know what to do. So, that's where we come in place, and we have the business office manager to try to mitigate that and get them coverage for long-term care. So there's a lot that goes into that, but I mean, I just want to let you guys know like some of the challenges that could happen, on admission. So coming in from the hospital will send a referral in to the admissions director. We review the referral. We look at, first of all, our clinical team looks at what's going on. Do they have wounds at home? Do they need a wound vac? Do they need oxygen? All of those sorts of things. So they review it to see if we can take care of them clinically. And again, every facility is different. Some might not have a wound care, some, staffing issues, different things like that. So we have to look at each case one by one. And then the next thing we look at is the financial situation. We look to see like what sorts of insurance that they have, whether it's Medicare, Medicare, if they have Medicare, they can come straight to the facility. If they have a managed plan, like I said, like Aetna or any of those plans, I'm just using Aetna, it's familiar to me. Then we have to get authorization. So we have to call the insurance company, and we have to essentially, they review the notes, they give us the okay. And once we have that authorization, then we can bring them in. Now, when we bring them in, they let us know when the next update is going to be. And we have to let them know at the time that what their plan is. Are they going to go home, or are they going to be long-term care? And then we try to have those discussions prior to people coming in to the facility. So, generally at bedside at the hospital, we would send one of our representatives to kind of talk to them a little bit about what their expectations are and that sort of thing, so we could get the ball rolling sooner. But a lot of times, we've seen some situations where we'll have someone come in, a family come in, and things change. Like we're gonna bring mom or dad here today, and after he gets better, we're gonna come home. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and in those cases, then we have to work really quickly to be able to help them out. Now, with nursing homes, I gotta say, especially with OBRA, a lot of those regulations are really in favor of the residents, right? So a lot of the rights that they have, whether it comes to abuse, abuse has 5 different categories, and we're responsible, we're stewards for our residents. So we have to make sure that we have everything in place for the resident. We're not able to, quote unquote, kick anybody out of a facility. Once we accept somebody, we have to, it's our duty to take care of them, regardless of what their situation is. And every company has a different policy and procedure for dealing with different situations. But I just want to really let you guys know about nursing homes in general, and some of the challenges that they have, and some of the steps that they have to follow. Because I think, especially when it comes to insurance and the discharging process, there's a lot of questions. But I mean, if you guys have any questions, I think it'd be better, if you ask me, I'd love to answer them. Yes, ma'am. Managed, yes. Yeah, so Medicare, you'll get that through normal rates, but managed Medicare, that's like a program that you would sign up for, whether that be like Aetna or Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana, those sorts of programs, you know. Mm. Yes, Medicare Advantage. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. So that's the only thing that we look at. Mhm. Mhm. So yeah, yeah. So if you have traditional Medicare, they have there's 100 days of coverage that they have, and then if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, you still have 100 days. However, they'll essentially dictate how soon that coverage would drop. Whether it be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that sort of thing. You know. Yeah. Mhm. Right. Yeah. 3 months. Right, right, right. So yeah, exactly. So that's the thing is, if we know someone's going to be like long-term care and they don't have Medicaid in place, that's a decision. Of course, if some people choose to go private pay, right? Whether that be for that, but for getting Medicaid, there's an application that we utilize from the state, and we have to submit, usually bank statements, bank records, things of that nature to qualify for it. And then they would usually do a 3-month look back. So if there was 3 months, it took 3 months to get that Medicaid, they would cover that 3 months. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like for Medicaid, you're talking about for. Yeah. Normally people have primary insurance, right? So they have Medicare or Medicare Advantage, or even from their job, they might have a payer source that would assist. But after those exhaust, then it's like, what do we do? Right? What do we got going on here? So in that situation, Medicaid is, you usually either have Medicaid or private pay at that point in time, right? So in order to qualify, you have to qualify for Medicaid. They have some requirements that are laid out on the state site that you can check out, and you have to send an application into the state for the individual, and they have to have a certain level of care if they're going to be long-term care and that kind of thing. So those are some things that we have to do to get them approved for Medicaid, so that they can utilize Medicaid if necessary.
And Momin,
Yeah.
after we take our break and you guys visit the table vendors, that's what we're going to be addressing after the break, is how to pay for all these levels of care.
Okay.
So we will have Kelly Green with veterans, because if you're a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, there's ways to pay for things, as well as Jennifer Garner will be here to discuss the whole Medicaid spend down process, because that's another piece that's very complicated. All of the people, the speakers here, the table vendors, everybody has a piece of all of these pieces of people's lives as they get older. So yes, there's lots of choices that we have, but then there's things that aren't a choice. There's an actual thing that happens, and there are other people to help in our community. If anything, if you don't take away anything from this day today, if you just realize that the Senior Enrichment Center is a good place to start, we can then go, okay, you need this, here's who you need to talk to. You need this, you need to talk to this person. We love when you guys take all the information from today and take notes, but then when a crisis actually happens, sometimes you forget where all that is, or you forget that you all the information that was given today. But if you can just remember to call, we can then give you all the names and options. And once you're with, like, say, the Greens at Pinehurst, then there's people, the staff there that can help you through the next process. Once you're in any one of these places, there's people there. That's the main goal, is we are all here to help. We're not all here to scare people. We just want you to have all the information that you need. Okay? So with that, are you finished, Momin?
Yeah, I mean, that was just about it. I just wanted to give people an insight into nursing homes.
You did a great job,
Oh,
and thank
thanks.
you so very much.
Thank you.
And so with that, we'll take a break. We'll take a half-hour break, and just the restrooms are out. There's still more coffee, and then you can go in and out of the table vendors. Yes? Did you say something? Oh. Okay, everybody, we're going to start back up. If you could please find your seats. Thank you. We have a few speakers left, and we do have an addition. So after Robin Hutchings comes up and talks to you about the cost analysis, like how to figure out what you're paying at home versus paying for moving into a place, we're going to have a couple representatives from the Department of Social Services to speak a little bit about some of the forms and things, just to make sure that everybody understands. And then we'll have Kelly Stevens, not Kelly Stevens, we'll have Kelly Green. Kelly Stevens is a girlfriend of mine, so sometimes things pop out of my head, whether it's a TV show person or a real life person, that just happens to me. But anyway, so without further ado, Robin Hutchings is speaking for Deb Ogburn because unfortunately she has laryngitis. So thank you again, Robin, for taking two different topics.
I'm back. So this is what we all want to know about. This is what it all boils down to for so many people. But before I go on, I want to stop right there. This should not be the only thing that makes your decision for you. Money is important. It costs a lot of money to live in all of these types of communities, and it is hard. I was just speaking with a lady at my table that was talking, we were talking about how much does Medicaid pay? How much does Medicare pay? Well, guess what? Medicare won't pay for any of your assisted living or independent living costs. Medicaid will pay for those things, but unfortunately, you have to spend down all of your hard-earned savings, and you can't make more than a X amount of dollars, and I can't tell you what those numbers are, so don't ask me. Other experts will tell you that, okay? I'm not the expert on that. But let's talk about how you cope, how you pay, and what it's about. One of the things I will say is so many people wait until they're in crisis mode before they make the decision to move because they're worried about having enough money for the rest of their life. Please don't let that be the driving force. If you need to move to a care community, the money will work itself out. It just will. We don't know that we're all going to live to be 115. Of course, my mother-in-law that lives in Florida is going to. She's 98 and going strong. But you need to understand what pays what. When you are doing your homework and going everywhere, you need to ask, what is covered? I can speak today about my community, and I'm going to speak about my community, but you should ask these questions. On my table, there was this little piece of paper. If you did not get one, please stop by. Because first, before you say, I can't afford that, you need to decide, what am I affording now? What am I paying now? What does it cost for me to live where I'm living now? And when you do the math, sometimes it's not that much different. So consider, if you still have a mortgage on your house, what is your HOA fees? How much do you eat? What does it cost to keep this house up? Lawn care, cleaning lady, taxes. Did y'all get your new tax assessments, all you Moore County people? Sorry, I digress. Okay. Security systems, making sure that we're safe. Write all of it down. How much do I spend each month? Electricity, gas, water, trash removal, phone, internet, cable, all of that. Then compare it to where you're moving. Okay, I add all this up and it costs me $4,800 this month to live at home, and my house is paid for. Okay, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But you start talking about factor in monthly your insurance, and your tax bill and the electricity. Of course, we had a really mild winter this winter, so we didn't spend very much on heat, did we? But we all kept our air conditioners going. So just write it down. Then compare apples to apples. When you are touring with the person that you want to in your potential new home, in your new community, ask them, do you have any specials? Do you offer a veterans discount to live here? Do you accept long-term care insurance? How many of you have a long-term care insurance policy? Okay, do your homework on it. See how much it pays per day. See if there's a cap. See if there is an amount see how many activities of daily living you have to need assistance with before it starts paying. Do your homework on the policy you've been paying for years. Once it's enacted, do I still have to pay for it, or do my premiums stop? Some are that way, some are not. Write down what your pension is and your Social Security. There's also a veterans discount, a veterans pension called aid and attendance, and I think somebody else is going to go into detail about that. But I want you to know that that can also help you pay for care. So these are resources. There are also things like reverse mortgages, selling your house outright, investing your monies that way. There's also reverse life insurance policies. There are all kinds of things that your salesperson, wherever you go, should be able to help you talk through. If you come to me, I'm going to say, you need to go see your financial advisor and let them help you. No, that's not true. That's not true. I will help you, but your financial advisor is another good resource. Your elder law attorneys are another good resource. That's another thing that all attorneys are great. I know they are, but there are certain types of attorneys, elder law attorneys, that can really help you understand how to protect your assets for the long haul. So if you have just a regular everyday attorney, ask them about that. And if they can't help you, go see an elder law attorney, because trying to figure out how to pay for this is important, and it's individualized. So what I can tell you today is there are resources for you if you were a veteran. If you own a home, you can sell your home, you can reverse mortgage your home, you can rent your home. There are all different kinds of ways that you can derive income from that. But trying to figure out where you can live based on what you make and what you have. I have a little formula that I use that I can sit down with folks and they can say, I have this amount of money, and I can say, based on what you've told me today, you can live here 14 years. You shouldn't worry. You're 92. Okay? So just know that people can help you with that. Do not be afraid because you think you don't have enough money. You can control cost by size of apartment, by cutting back on all those vitamins we talked about. Remember, you may go from 14 meds, which makes you be complex, down to 6 meds whenever you start taking a multivitamin instead of all those different ones you take, right? Not trying to tell you that you need to lessen your care, but there are ways. So don't be afraid of the cost. Don't say, I can't because of what it costs, until you've had those hard, critical conversations. So what happens if you do run out of money and you live at Fox Hollow? I'm going to help you find somewhere else to live, and that's just the harsh truth of it. Most people that are only private pay do not accept Medicaid. a lot of people hit what I call the donut hole, and I think Jennifer's going to talk about the donut hole eventually, about you make too much really to get Medicaid. So then you might change different levels of care, what your levels of care are. And I really don't know the numbers, but there are professionals that can help you with that. But what I want to say about cost is compare what you're paying now to what it cost. Questions about that? I wasn't really prepared to talk about this today, so I'm kind of winging it. So, so does anybody have any questions? So we've talked about, you're going to hear about the aid and attendance pension from the VA, life insurances, selling your home, renting your home, reverse mortgaging your home. Yes, ma'am. Every community is different, but just like your taxes are going up because we all got our new tax assessments, right? Yes, every year you're going to have an increase. You know, I can tell you that COVID didn't help because most people's census, which is the number of people that live in their communities, went down. And so we're building our censuses back up. Increases happen every year. Street rates change. So that means if you come and talk to me on November the 21st and I give you a price, if you come back in January and say, hey, I'm ready to go, guess what? We're in January now, so that price has increased whatever it is. In my community, when your level of care changes, that's when that changes. You come in as basic, where you don't really need my assistance, but you want the housekeeping and all the amenities that go with it. And you might just want transportation to and from. That's an amenity, okay? But your care is zero. But let's say you start needing more assistance. You've had one or two falls and you need some help. Then that care might go up, but your apartment rent won't go up at that point. So apartment rent and care are two different things. So yes, your amount that you're paying can change. Did that answer that? There's an inflation rate that goes into my formula. Yeah. Typically in my community, our rates increase 4 to 5% per year. Last year we increased 8%. But the cost of food has gone up. The cost of everything has gone up. So we went up 8%. And that's just the truth. Guess what your Social Security increase was last year? 8%. So there you go. All right, are there any other questions? I know that wasn't very informative, but I hope that gave you some things to think about.
Very informative. Don't sell yourself short.
Don't rule out moving until you've had the conversation, okay? Until you've put it down on paper. And not necessarily with just me. You don't just need to talk to me. You need to talk to your trusted professionals. You need to talk to your family. Because I can guarantee you all 3 of my children live away from here. They don't still live here. They're close, but they're not that close. I'm not going to Raleigh. So they might prefer to infuse $500 a month to help me live where I'm safe and secure instead of me coming to live with them. So have a conversation with your kids, okay?
That's
Of course, my baby told me this weekend, she said, Mama, I'll always have a closet for you to live in. So are there any other questions? Then I'm going to give you a few minutes back and we're going to move on to the next person, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, we have an addition today. We're going to slide in a couple of representatives from Department of Social Services, Michelle and Sarah. If you want to come up. They just wanted to go over, a lot of presenters were speaking today, and they just want to clarify a couple of things, because the Department of Social Services is a wonderful tool, resource for all of the Medicaid questions, for food stamps, for guardianship questions, all kinds of things. So Sarah's going to speak a little bit, and then Michelle, and then we'll have Kelly speak on Veterans Aid and Attendance Benefit. Thank you.
Michelle's a bit of a chicken, so you may have to help me get her up here in a little bit. But so one of the things that I do is I'm considered an adult home specialist. Some people will also call me a county monitor. So I go into these assisted living facilities specifically, and I monitor them based on some rural areas. So like something like the staffing. I actually go in there and they have ratios that they have to meet. And they have ratios that they have to meet based on how many residents are in there. They have to have so many staff in there. So I do go in there and I do make sure that they're meeting those ratios. It's based on state guidelines, not mine. So please don't yell at me. But they are, well, actually, I just finished monitoring that, and all of my facilities specifically are meeting those ratios right now. So I can't speak for other counties, but rest assured that more counties got this. Another thing I wanted to tell you, one of the things you need to consider and look at and study and know before you go in these facilities is something called resident rights. If you want to come put your name and your email down on my clipboard back there, I will email you a link to how you can get to these, but that is something that you definitely need to know. She has them on the table because she is awesome. You definitely need to know those before you go into a facility, because it tells you like that you have the right to have your own pharmacist, or you have the right to have your own doctor, and you have a right to live free of abuse, neglect, and exploitation, and all these things. Another thing that you need to have, so I'm going to touch base on Medicaid just real quick. I do not know tons about Medicaid, and she's being a chicken. But so if you're going to go into a facility, one of the things that they're going to need before you even can step in that door for anything is an FL2, okay? And an H&P as well. But so there's a lot of different kind of FL2s out there. But if you're going to need Medicaid to go to an assisted living or a long-term care facility, you need this FL2, okay? So I have a few of them laid out back there, but also, again, if you write your name and your email address down, I can send you a copy of it, okay? And you would take this to your primary care physician, and they would fill it out completely. And then this would be something that you have to take with you when you're looking at facilities and you've chosen a facility. You have to give them this and your H&P so that they can, start the assessment to make sure that your level of care meets what they can provide in that facility. Because if it does not, and you're at a higher level of care, or this FL2 does not say that you can be in that type of facility, then they're going to get in trouble by me. And I know I sound nice, but I'm mean. I'm mean. My kids won't even tell you I'm mean, but I do try. But there are a couple different types of Medicaid that you would need when you go to a facility. So if you go to an assisted living facility, the type of Medicaid that you would want to apply for is called SA Medicaid, Special Assistance. And you have to do that in person at Medicaid, or at the Medicaid office, so which is DSS. As far as long-term care Medicaid, then that is something where you can send in an application. And it takes, I think, 45 days. They have 45 days to finish their application process. They retro back for long-term care 5 years. No, retro back is they pay back 3 months, but they look back 5 years for your finances. Is it the same for SA? You're already talking. Come up here. No, I'm not. I don't know a lot about Medicaid, but whatever. So if you want to get my card while you're back there, or Michelle's card, because she will talk to you on the phone. But if you get our cards and you have any kinds of questions about facilities, types of facilities, lists of facilities, please call us. That is specifically what I do all day long. So give me something to do because it makes my day go by faster. But I have lists of assisted livings. I have lists of nursing homes, and these are all of the assisted livings and nursing homes and everything in the state of North Carolina, and they are all listed by county. So I have these lists. And if you need them, just again, write your email and your name down and I will get it right to you. And then of course, if you have any questions or it's getting a little bit more overwhelming for you and you want somebody to be there to guide you through it and help you understand what you need to do, I also provide what's called placement services, which is an elective service. So all you have to do is call me and say, hey, Sarah, I want placement services. Or if you are the power of attorney or the guardian over somebody and you want help with them, then you call me and say, hey, I need this for, my loved one. And then I will have you sign one pretty little form that is not complicated at all. You will understand what it says, I promise. And we will, we'll go through the process together. Okay. That is all I could remember to say. So do you have any questions? Okay.
Thank you so much.
They said they have questions for you, but you won't come up here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, now I just thought that was wonderful. And like I said before, when you forget some of the information that you've learned here at the Senior Center or some of the services that we provide, and you have other questions or other needs, we will also then share with you the information. Go visit DSS and here's their phone number. For this, you want to talk to Veteran Services. Here's their phone number and their address. So they are very good, DSS is, with referring people here for services that we provide, and we do the same with them, as well as veterans and anyone else in this room, quite frankly. So now we're going to have Kelly Green come up, and she is going to speak on the aid and attendance benefit that veterans has. And so bear with me while I put our projector back on and get the presentation going. And thank you so much, Kelly.
I don't know about y'all, but wow, what a lot of information already this morning, right? Yes. And I'm going to try, I do have a slideshow for this. I'm going to try to keep it where you can understand it. And VA is very difficult. And as you know, VA is a government, federal government benefits that we have. So I'm going to keep it general and not so specific because it can get way down in the weeds. So we're going to try not to do that. Technology is great. When it works. I have it printed out, so in case that doesn't work. I didn't see it. Somebody happened to take the clicker? Whoever was speaking earlier? Mm. Can you just click it for me next, and I'll just tell you when to go to the next slide? I'll do it to you. Okay, we're still going to get started. So, Veterans Affairs, aid and attendance. One of the most important things I want to tell you is aid and attendance is not a standalone program with the VA. You can go to the next slide. There are two ways to get aid and attendance. Oh, back one. There are two ways to get aid and attendance through the VA. One is special monthly compensation, or SMC, at the aid and attendance rate. And the second is through the VA pension program. Next slide. So we're going to talk about the first one, special monthly compensation. What is special monthly compensation? It's a monetary benefit that is added to your VA disability pay. So if you're a veteran, excuse me, if you're a veteran receiving VA disability pay, then you can get, we found it. You can get extra money added to your disability pay every month if you are in need of aid and attendance. Okay, sorry. So how do you qualify for that? If you're a veteran, of course, you must require assistance with activities of daily living because of your service-connected disability. The VA will not look at any disability that is not service-connected for the special monthly compensation. And you have to have a form completed by your physician that's called an aid and attendance form. Veteran spouse can also get, let me rephrase that. The veteran spouse can be eligible for special monthly compensation at the aid and attendance rate. The veteran must be at least 30% disability compensation pay. The spouse, again, must need assistance with activities of daily living, and that benefit is added to the veteran's disability pay. And again, the same form has to be completed by your physician. So for the veteran, how much do they pay? Well, it depends. Of course, with any government agency, it depends on the level of care you needed and what your VA disability rate is. So if you're at 10% or 100% through the VA. I will say it starts at about $400 a month and goes up from there. How much does it pay for your spouse? Unfortunately, not very much. It depends on, again, the level of disability. If the veteran is rated at 30%, it's about $55 added a month to their disability pay. If they're at 100%, it's $185 added a month. So that is pretty much the special monthly compensation. The one that we always hear about is, people come to see us and say, I was told I need to apply for aid and attendance. Well, again, aid and attendance is not a standalone program. So you have, with pension, you have the Veterans Pension Program, and you have the Surviving Spouse Pension Program. Pension is a needs-based program that provides a monetary benefit to certain wartime veterans or their surviving spouse. Wartime veteran is important. You do not have to necessarily gone overseas, but you had to serve at least one day during a wartime period. So with VA pension, there's three different levels. There's the basic pension level, which is low income. There's the housebound, which is an increased level where if you are pretty much confined to your home, and aid and attendance. That's another increased amount where if you need the help with daily activities, if you're considered legally blind, or if you're in a nursing home. So for veteran eligibility, you of course could not have a dishonorable discharge. And then there's certain service requirements. Before September 7th, 1980, you had to have at least 90 consecutive active duty days. And after September 7th, 1980, you had to do 24 months or your full active duty time period. And again, at least one day during a wartime period. And then your yearly income has to meet certain net worth limits. We'll get into that here in a minute. And then the veteran has to meet at least one of these, be 65 or older, have a permanent and total non-service connected disability, or are in a nursing home for long care, or receive Social Security disability insurance. The surviving spouse's eligibility. Again, the veteran could not have a dishonorable discharge. Same service requirements. And then the surviving spouse's yearly income must meet certain criteria, and the surviving spouse cannot be remarried. Again, how much do they pay? Well, it depends on your income. The payment is based on the difference between the countable income and a limit that is set by Congress called the maximum annual pension rate. This is the maximum amount that VA can pay out. We always get this. Does my Social Security qualify as income? Yes. You have to report all income. We do not want you coming back later and saying, oh, well, I forgot I had this, because it will catch up with you. And we do not want you to be in a payback situation with the government. Again, what's the maximum annual pension rate? Well, this is set by Congress every year, and it changes. The veteran rate, you'll see here in a minute, is a little bit higher. The surviving spouse's limit is lower. It depends on if you have a dependent or not, which for the veteran, yes, your spouse is considered a dependent. So these are the basic rates with no dependents. And you can see for basic pension, $16,037. This is the maximum amount that the VA can pay out. So if your income is higher than that, you would not qualify. Now, how do we decrease our income? Because we can do that with, especially if you're in aid and attendance, say you need that in home care, you need the assisted living. If you need the assisted living because your doctor says you need that environment and your doctor will write a new letter, we can deduct some of that cost. So the VA will deduct only the amount that exceeds 5% of the PR, the maximum amount pension rate. And every year it goes up, but as of December 1st, your net worth limit, this does not include your home or your vehicle, must be under 150,538. Now that's a lot of information. What do we need? First, we need your discharge paperwork. If you're married, we need your marriage certificate. If you've previously been married, we need those marriage certificates and or divorce decrees, death certificates, any of that. We need proof of all of your income, all of it. And proof of your out-of-pocket, non-reimbursed medical expenses. So if you're paying the assisted living, the nursing home, things like that, we need those proof. The VA goes off of your gross income, then we deduct out everything else. So then your Medicare premiums, excuse me, things like that can be deducted out. Questions? Yes.
So if I have, say I have a loved one that is a veteran that needs to go to an assisted living or something, and I call you to make an appointment and I bring all of these documents with me, how long does the process?
It varies with the VA. If we have all the information, we just had one last week that was awarded within 90 days. I have seen it take a year to go through the process. Now, with that said, it is retroactive back to the day you apply. One other thing I will mention is if you are looking into this benefit, be careful who you talk to. Unfortunately, there are companies out there that want to charge you. They want to do different things. The VA has a 3-year look back period. I think Medicaid's 5 years, VA's is 3 years on if you transfer any assets. And you can, that's fine. They will give you a penalty period and then you could become eligible after that. But just be very careful, do your homework, do your research. You should never pay to have a government form filled out. They are free. You can even get them off the internet and do it yourself if you want.
Although I wouldn't recommend that.
No,
because
come see us.
they're very confusing. But I certainly echo what Kelly is saying, because you can easily just call them, make an appointment, and they can help you through this process. Elder Law, Jennifer Garner is going to be speaking next. She's another one that can help you through this process. And there are a lot of pop-ups companies that say that they can help you and get it a lot quicker, but then they take some of the money percentage of what you're going to be getting as pay. And so if you do it through the Veteran Services Department, and if you do it through an elder law attorney, they will not take any money from you for completing the paperwork.
Any questions?
No questions, but are there any veterans in the audience or spouses of a veteran? Thank you for your service. Thank you very much. Did you know about these benefits? A lot of times that's what we get. We get a lot of veterans that have no idea, but they say that there's a certain amount of money that is put aside every year for these types of benefits, but they don't want to take that money and make commercials out of it, because then it's taking away from the money that's for the veterans. But if the veterans don't know about it, it's like a catch-22. So thank you very much for giving this information to any veteran that you might know. And thank you, Kelly. Okay, so next up is going to be Jennifer Garner, and she is going to talk about the actual Medicaid spend down process that we've been hearing from a few different presenters before. And don't mind me walking around turning off things so that we could let some light in the room. Okay, so thank you, and here's Jennifer.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you guys again today. Glad that some of you returned, and some new faces maybe as well. So my legal assistant, Amanda, is passing out a handout for you guys to sort of follow along. I sort of did a summary of what I think you've heard about in the last 2 weeks' presentations. I'm going to run through that quickly. When I get to the Medicaid piece, I'll slow down, and of course, I'll leave time for questions as well. Medicaid is very complex, very confusing, constantly changing. And so I find the easiest way to go through this with you is to do a little case study. So we're going to talk about Daisy and Donald Duck today. Figured most of you were familiar with them. So Daisy and Donald had worked hard. They saved for retirement, and they found the perfect location to spend their retirement years here in Moore County. Not having children of their own, they decided to move close to one of their nephews. Both had successful careers at Disney and had spent a lot of time with Donald's nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Dewey had enlisted in the U.S. military, and he was likely to remain based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, for most of his career. Daisy and Donald found a lovely apartment. The town was lovely, the view was great, and they just loved the sense of community here. Donald noticed a change in Daisy shortly after the move. She seemed confused at times. She missed some of her morning swim clubs, and her perfect cornbread recipe was just didn't taste the same anymore. He mentioned it to the regular doctor, who decided that she needed to be referred to a neurologist, neuropsychologist, or gerontologist to be reviewed thoroughly. After a series of tests and ruling out other potential causes, Daisy was diagnosed with mild dementia, most likely Alzheimer's type. Donald attends support group meetings. He consulted with the Dementia Alliance of North Carolina for information and research, encouraged all his friends from Florida to participate in the annual Alzheimer's Walk to raise funds for research. He realized he would soon need to be much more involved in the daily household activities. So if no one touched on that the last couple of weeks, I highly encourage those of you with spouses to cross-train your spouse. It's amazing how much work it takes to run a household. And I find that most of us obviously don't understand or know exactly what the other party's doing to make it run a lot smoother. So if you've never done laundry, now's the time to learn. If you've never blown the pine straw off the sidewalk, it's time to learn. It makes life a little bit easier. So Donald's getting prepared to take care of the house, and he goes to see his attorney to figure out if there's anything else he needs to plan for. So he talks to the attorney, of course, about things like power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, living wills, medical directives, medical release forms like HIPAA release forms. What do they do about competency and guardianship issues if Daisy's not competent and capable to execute those documents, as well as setting up any kind of a will or trust plan that they might need. Daisy and Donald spend the next few years adjusting to life with Alzheimer's diagnosis. But then the time comes that Donald can no longer handle Daisy at home, and he needs to talk about placement. So that's a lot of what you went over this morning. What should Donald do? Well, of course, I encourage him to visit assisted living and skilled nursing facilities in the area, check and see what he thinks might be most appropriate for her, depending on her level of dementia at the time. Advocate for Daisy and her care. Become familiar with the rights of patients at facilities. You heard that from another speaker this morning. Very important to understand that once you move into a facility, you have not lost all of your rights. Meet with the facility bookkeeper to make sure that they understand your medical coverage. What kind of health insurance do you have? Do you have traditional Medicare? Did you opt into a Medicare Advantage plan? Need to understand how and what might be covered. And then, of course, investigate any long-term care insurance that you have. So if you do have any long-term care insurance, it's time for Donald to pull that out at this point and start understanding what it pays for, what it doesn't pay for, and how to begin that process to apply. They don't like to write you checks, even though you write them big checks for premiums. So you want to be ready to advocate when you think you need that money. So Daisy transferred to an assisted living memory care unit. She attended a lot of the great activities, met a lot of new friends. Donald visited her frequently, but he also got some rest and he traveled to see a lot of his old friends and nephews. And he's now actually going to his own doctor appointments and taking care of himself, which we see a lot of caregivers not do while they're caring for their loved one. Very important to care for yourself. Donald receives a call from the facility and they ask about a care conference to discuss Daisy's decline. She reached a point where assisted living is really not appropriate for her any longer. So what's Donald going to do? Well, I would recommend that he do a hospice consult, that he talk with the doctor, the facility doctor, or her personal doctors to see whether she's palliative or hospice appropriate. Discuss in-home care. Do they want to bring Daisy home and have in-home care if it's a short period of time? Discuss facility care. So she's already been in assisted living, but now we need to look at skilled nursing. Or do we want to do a combination of care? So maybe in-home care with hospice support, and then use an assisted living or skilled nursing facility for respite care. So if Huey was getting married to his third wife and Donald wanted to go to the wedding, then he would need respite care and a place to place Daisy where she would be safe until he came back into town. But how are we going to pay for it? So you've got Medicare available to you when you turn 65. Now you have a lot of choices to make with Medicare. You've got those Medicare Advantage plans, or you can keep your traditional Part A and B Medicare. If you have A and B, you usually have a supplement because A and B doesn't pay for everything. If you do the Advantage plan, that takes the place of needing a supplement, but remember that you have deductibles and copays and things of the sort with an Advantage plan. So really count on Medicare for things like doctor, hospital, a rehab stay in a skilled nursing facility, and your diagnosis and diagnostic testing. You have veterans benefits if you're a veteran or spouse of a veteran. Kelly did a great job of going over that last week and this week. You've got your health benefits in the VA for the veteran themselves. You may be eligible for some disability benefits. And then aid in attendance, the pension benefit. Then you have special assistance. So I try really hard to get everybody that I know not to call that Medicaid just because it gets really confusing. It is a Medicaid waiver program, but the official title for the program is called Special Assistance, and it is a North Carolina-based waiver program, meaning that the feds gives money to the different states to administer a program for assisted living, but they're very different in each state. And it's not part of the Medicaid program that pays for skilled nursing. So the issue I see most often with special assistance is that the income cap is very low, and it's based on your gross income. So that Social Security check before any deductions, so before your Medicare premium comes out, or if you have your Part D prescription premium being drafted from Social Security, it's the gross income, and it is all of your income. So if you get dividends, if you get a pension, any other income, to go into basic assisted living, you have to have income, gross income of less than $13.55 a month. And the enhanced rate is what they used to call the special care unit, which is the memory care unit. So you have to have less than $17.37 a month in gross income to be considered for that program. And your assets have to be down to $2,000. And as some other folks mentioned, that has a 3-year look back, which means that you can't just give the kids everything the day before you go in and then tell them that you have no money, okay? They look back 3 years. So what I was asked to really go into detail on was the Medicaid program for skilled nursing care or long-term care. In that program, I kind of call it a 3-pronged test. You need to make sure that it's medically necessary to be there. So that is the FL2 form that Social Services mentioned a little bit earlier, and they have a sample back there on their table. But that's the form that the doctor must complete before you're accepted into skilled nursing level of care. You can't just decide you want to go. You need to have problems that necessitate your being in a skilled nursing center. Then they look at your income, and they don't have an income cap on this program, which is great. But I suspect that most all of us in this room would be under what that cap might look like anyway. because nursing care is expensive. So as long as your income is below what it costs to go into that facility, you pass the income test. So if the facility is a $7,200 a month facility and you're making $3,000 a month, you get over that income hurdle. There's not a cap. Now, if you were retired military and then you worked for a big corporation and you paid into Social Security, so you're getting a Social Security benefit, you're getting a military pension, you're getting private industry pension, you may very well be over the income limit. And then you wouldn't qualify on the income. But I don't see many people that have that. They don't usually come in to talk about Medicaid if they're making $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month in retirement. Then you have to look at your assets. So Daisy has gone into the facility. The doctor filled out the FL2, said that because she was bedridden and could no longer walk and get around the facility on her own, she was had some bed sores and needed more nursing care and could not be transferred safely at assisted living level of care. So she's now in the facility. Her income is low. She worked at Disney and that was the only job she ever had. And so she's only getting like $1,500 a month from Walt. So assets. So when you are applying for Medicaid, they ask about your assets. You as the person that's in the facility, so Daisy in this case, can only have $2,000 in her name to qualify. What about Donald? So Donald's called the community spouse, the one who's not in a facility. He's still living in the community. They will gather all of Donald and Daisy's assets, so it doesn't matter whose name it's in or whether it is jointly owned, and divide it in half. That magic number cannot be below $29,724, and he can't keep more than $148,620. So now that you all understand all of that perfectly, we'll go through the details of their assets. So they have $200,000 in the bank in various checking, savings, and money market accounts. Donald is driving his 2023 Mustang, always wanted a sports car. So that was valued at $30,000. Daisy has an older Suburban 2015 that's valued at $40,000. She loved to take all the neighborhood ducklings down to the pond for a swim in the morning, so she kept the big car. Household furnishings and personal items. Of course, we all know that our personal items are priceless, right? Prepaid irrevocable burial contracts. So they went to the funeral home and planned everything ahead of time. They spent less than $30,000 on those. So there's no question about them not being applicable or not being accepted. If you do a burial trust instead of a burial contract with a funeral home, you can spend up to $15,000 a person in the trust. And I encourage my clients to do the inflation protected plans with the local funeral homes, but you can't get greedy. You can't go down and just buy everything up at the funeral home and say that you're going to have prime rib dinner served to everybody that comes to your service, and really load it up and then not follow through and try to get refunds back at the end. So they do look, if you get a little greedy, they will ask some questions. And then they still have their house in Disney World. So everybody on staff down there has a home on the Disney property, but Walt doesn't let you own all of it. Of course, he keeps half of it. So they own half of it, valued at $200,000. And then because they're ducks and they love water and love to swim, they did invest in stock in the Disney Cruise Line, and that's worth $100,000. So what of that is called a countable asset by Medicaid? Well, they're bank assets because they can get to those. There's no restrictions on those. They have an extra vehicle. You can only have one vehicle as a couple and qualify for Medicaid. So we toss the Suburban in there. And then the stock. The stock is available. It can be spent, and so it's countable. Non-countable assets, you're able to keep one vehicle. The house down in Disney is actually a non-countable asset because remember, they only own half of it. And tenants in common property is non-countable for Medicaid purposes. Household furnishings and personal items. Now, you can't have a collection of gold bars and call that a personal item. Or, you know, an original Van Gogh on the wall in the living room. That's really more of an investment, which would be countable. But if you have your everyday possessions that were normal for you and the value of your home, you're good on that. And then those irrevocable burial contracts are exempt. They don't make you cash those out or change anything on those. We do definitely check with Donald and Daisy to make sure that they have not gifted anything during the 5 years prior to the application. If they had been gifting and helping Louis go and get his master's degree or something, that would be a gift, and Medicaid could penalize that. The only way to challenge gifts is to say that it was not for Medicaid planning purposes, which is kind of a very uphill battle. Everything is assumed to be gifted away for Medicaid purposes. So you want to start any gifts at least 5 years prior to your illness or your stroke, or in this case, her dementia. If you do make a gift, for every gift that you make that is valued at $7,110 or a fraction thereof, is a 1 month penalty. So if you gave away $70,000, you're looking at 9.5 months of penalty, and you have to figure out how to get those funds back to pay through the penalty or do something in the alternative. I don't know what the alternative is. So countable assets. So everything that was countable for them totaled $340,000. So 1/2 of that was $170,000. Donald can keep his $148,620. Remember, that was the maximum amount. So his half is over the maximum. So he can only keep the maximum of $148,620. And we can keep $2,000 in their joint account or in an account that has just Daisy's name on it. So that leaves us $189,380 to spend down before she would qualify. So what are some ideas of things that we could do to help Donald out? Because remember, he's only going to have the $148,000 left available to him for the rest of his life. So he decides he's going to trade in both cars and buy a smaller SUV. So Daisy can't really get in and out of the Mustang easily anymore, and he doesn't want to keep the older Suburban. So he trades in both and buys himself a little Mercedes SUV. So both of those cars are gone now, and he has $19,380 that he also has to pay to the dealer because he needed a Mercedes and not a Chevy. Okay. He decides to buy a townhome in Southern Pines because they don't have a home place. Remember, they have their investment down in Florida, which is owned half by Walt, where they lived when they in their working years, but they were living in an apartment here in Southern Pines. So they decided that instead of him having to pay rent every month in the apartment, that it would make more sense to use their assets on a home place. And so they use $150,000. I wish I could find a condo for $150,000 in Moore County today, but everything has doubled. So he spends $150,000 and buys himself a home place. That's a non-countable asset because he's allowed to have a home, and that'll be fully paid for. So he won't have a mortgage or anything going out on a monthly basis. And then Walt calls and says, hey guys, you know, I hear you're doing a Medicaid spend down and Daisy's not doing real well. The tiled roof looks terrible on the house we have down here together. I need you to send me $20,000 to pay for your half. So they replaced the roof down at Disney, which is an acceptable expenditure because it's an asset of theirs. It's non-countable and they need to preserve that asset. So that ends up spending the $189,380 that they were over. Now, if they had not planned for funeral expenses or they had a bunch of outstanding bills, credit cards or other things of the like, I would have recommended that they clear those types of items out of the way so that Donald did not have a struggle every month trying to make monthly payments when he no longer has the rest of the money. And he also won't have Daisy's income. So Daisy's income goes to the nursing facility minus her monthly needs allowance that she gets to keep for things like new slippers or, new set of bedroom shoes or something. It doesn't buy much. Can I answer some questions? I tried to keep it, believe it or not, that simple for Medicaid. Tried to keep it sort of straightforward. No questions, so I lost all of you. Okay. Sorry. Okay, good.
Okay, so most people don't understand the Medicaid process, and this is why I'm so glad that Jennifer's not mentioning it. People will still read that, and it's a little bit easier to kind of understand.
A little bit.
A little bit. So if you're a couple, and once again, this is another spot that most people don't even think about is Medicaid, and then, okay, well, I want to go to help my spouse. It's not like all of the money goes to the spouse's health care, and then you are left destitute and floundering around to yourself. So the way Jennifer is explaining it is, that's why the process is figuring out everything all together and then putting it straight down the middle, making sure that the person who's going to be left behind living alone doesn't wind up destitute, while he winds up at least having a plan for themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see a lot of people too late in the process. They catch little bits and pieces of this off of the internet or off of what their friend at church did and how they saved something, and they sort of follow that without looking at the big picture. And so really you have to look at the big picture. You have to sit down and do the hard work up front, which is figuring out what your assets are and what you really have. And then put it onto a sheet of paper, and then we need to work through it as an example. I don't want you to call me after your spouse has been placed and you've been writing a check to the skilled nursing facility for $8,000 to $10,000 a month for the last year. And now, as the healthy spouse at home, you've got basically nothing left, and we could have preserved a chunk of assets for you perfectly legally, nothing hidden, nothing illegal, just moving assets to benefit the spouse. And if you were here last week, you heard me talk about the importance of financial powers of attorney and the gifting provisions that we like to have in them. This is a perfect example. Daisy has dementia. She's already in a skilled nursing center. She probably does not have the capacity to join Donald on things like the car title, to trade those cars in, to give himself what's left in the checking account, to transfer the stock from joint names to individual names. He has to have the authority under the power of attorney to do that, and specific authority to be able to gift it to himself. And that is not in your standard everyday power of attorney. So that brings in the importance of all of that planning at the beginning, which we did mention that Donald did and went in and saw his attorney and got all of that set up ahead of time.
I have another question. This is something that I see a lot in speaking with people on Medicare and not maybe making a lot of monthly income, and they're hoping that they can get qualified for the Medicare savings programs, which help you pay for Medicare Part B premium, as well as a drug plan, and lowers the prices of drugs. And a lot of times I see people who would qualify, but they own about 100 acres of their family land. And the thing is, the way the government sees it is, well, you could sell a few acres of that and then pay for what it is that you need. So where you're saying, as well as figuring out your plan, if you're at an age and you have a lot of land or something that you are going to possibly gift to your loved ones so that you keep that land in the family, it's really good to speak to an attorney and figure out the process so that you can put it in their names, so that as you get older and all of a sudden a need happens, they don't have to go back 5 years and now you've got to wait for several years in order for it to catch up. You've already put those things in place. Does that make sense? I know Jennifer can speak about that a little bit better than I can.
So lots of clients come in and talk to me about gifting. And the thing about the gifting is that you need, if you're, you need to understand that when you gift something, you've gifted it. So if clients have a beach condo that they rent out and they're used to using or living off of part of that income, and they're not ready to give that beach condo to the kids, if you gift it to the kids, the income goes with it. And so it's on the kids' income tax return. And so they're getting hit with an income tax that they may or may not have been ready for, but they have a beach condo, so not a bad deal for them. But it could push them into a different income tax bracket. It could prevent their children, your grandchildren, from receiving grants or scholarships to college that they would have received if those assets were not showing up in their parents' names. Same goes with if it's just your house. You put your house into your children's names. It's an asset for your children, and they need to be sure that they are listing it on everything when they are reporting their assets. So it really, in that case, it needs to be somewhat of a family plan. We as attorneys are very ethically restricted in who we can represent, and we can't ever represent anybody that has a conflict of interest. So in a lot of those situations, we have to be very careful about who we represent and who has counsel outside of our office, and making sure that they understand the implications of the gift. And then what happens if mom falls at the 3-year point, breaks a hip that doesn't heal well, and she has to stay in skilled care, and you're only 3 years into your 5-year look back. So there's great things about gifting, and then there's some not so great things about gifting. So really have to think through it and figure out if the income is something necessary that you need to have to live off of, if it's income that you can live without and would rather just pass it on. And then, of course, always be sure that the person you're planning to gift it to is ready, willing, and able to receive it. Usually they are without a problem, but you want to also trust that they're going to give it back to you should you break that hip at the 3-year point and need money back to make it through the 5 years. So that can get iffy. And then there's some tax issues as well. For example, if I were to gift my house to my children, they would receive my tax basis. So if I paid $200,000 for my house and I gifted it to them this week, the crazy tax office thinks that it's like tripled in value. So, wow, I'm giving them $600,000. I'd love to see them get that for it, but that I've just gifted them a $400,000 capital gain. So if they sold my house, they're not going to get any kind of step up because it was a gift. So when they sell my house out from under me and drop me off at the nursing home, they're going to get a big tax bill. So if they do that to me, then I might be very happy to pass along the tax bill. But remember, it was my house. And so if I sold it, then I would not have that size of a capital gain because it's my primary residence. But hopefully my kids are not going to be moving in and making it their primary residence. I actually haven't gotten them out of the house yet, but they're still legally able to live with me. So, all right. Nobody has any questions? The durable power of attorney. So a durable power of attorney should be very thorough and should cover like anything that someone needs to do, but you do want to look at that power of attorney specifically for gifting provisions, because depending on what you told the attorney or what you asked the attorney or how the attorney was trained or their focus of practice, they may have gifting provisions, not have gifting provisions they've added in. You may not have asked some of the magical questions about what if I wanted to qualify for Medicaid or what if I wanted to gift things away. So you want to be sure you have the right gifting provisions in there to make sure that government benefits planning, whether it's veterans planning, special assistance, or Medicaid planning, can be done if you can't participate yourself. All right, I think most of our people brought some awesome door prizes, so I'll turn this over to Lynn and let you guys take a shot at winning something good today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so Alvita is going to be coming up, and instead of her picking numbers this time, I'm going to pick numbers, and she's going to read to you the name. And she's still putting the numbers to the names right now. And we're going to ask all of the agencies and companies that brought a prize today, if you could please come to the front. And then we will announce who it is that is giving all these lovely prizes. And thank you all to our speakers again today and our table vendors and refreshment providers. Thank you so much. Okay, so here we go.
Okay.
Susan Brower. Garner Law Firm.
Firm has given a beautiful hanging basket. So raise your hand again. Thank you. Okay, the next number is going to be 20.
20 is Jeff Muser.
All right, Jeff, you get another lovely hanging basket from Garner Law Firm, PLLC. Okay,
All right. Give me a number.
number 32.
32 is Ed Weiler.
Ed Weiler must have left early.
Okay.
Okay, number 1.
Number 1 is Teresa Berry.
All right, you get a lovely gift from the Greens at Pinehurst. Everybody loves hydrangeas. Okay, next number is 15.
15 is Winston Lachlan.
Yay, Winston, you get a lovely gift from Fox Hollow Senior Living. Yes.
Okay.
28.
28 is Eileen Phelps.
All right, Eileen, you get another plant from Fox Hollow, and Fox Hollow is very conveniently located right there at the next table. Okay, number 38.
38 is Harold William. Harold William.
Okay, no Harold. Okay, 18.
18 is Warren Minch.
Warren Mensch is in here. How about number 2?
Number 2 is Thomas Berry.
All right, you get a lovely gift from First Health Hospice and Palliative Care. Okay, next up is 23.
23 is Charles O'Donnell.
Yay, Charles, you get a beautiful fern here from Magnolia Gardens.
It's pretty.
Okay, number 40.
Number 40 is Donald Wolf.
Yay, Donald, you got a gorgeous gift here from Brookdale Senior Living. All right, number 42. No, 42. 39.
39 is Martha Wolf.
Oh, wow. You get another beautiful gift from Brookdale Senior Living. And our last gift is going to be number 7. Oh, we've got 2 gifts. Number 7.
Number 7 is Phyllis Green.
Phyllis, you get a beautiful lily from Pinehurst Healthcare and Rehab. And we have one more. The final gift will be number 13.
13 is Edith Kyler. Yep.
Edith, oh, yay. Oh, very
Taylor.
good. Well,
Right.
thank you all for coming for the both weeks, one last week, one now. There she is. She's raising her hand. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you guys have a lovely rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye now.